Just imagine a man who took over the throne at the age of just 13, never married any woman, and always wore a horrific mask. He had everything from mighty power to thrones and kingship. But despite this, his end was his painful death at the young age of just 24. And this is the story of Baldwin IV, also known as the Leper King of the Holy Land. But why was he so famous? What did he do for Jerusalem? And the most common question roaming in your mind might be, why did Baldwin die at such a young age? Let's uncover each and every detail of Baldwin IV in this video. Make sure you don't skip anything. Baldwin IV was born in 1161, 60 years after the Latin states were founded. He was the son of Amalric. Amalric, or Amaury I, was king of Jerusalem from 1163 to 1167. Before that, he was Count of Jaffa and Ascalon. He took over for his bigger brother, Baldwin III. He was the second son of Melisende and Fulk of Jerusalem. Alexios Komnenos, the Emperor of Byzantium, asked Christians to help him get back the areas he'd lost to the Seljuk Turks. There were a few separate states in the Levant during the Middle Ages. They were called the Latin states. They were warrior states that were set up after the First Crusade. Pope Urban II called for a holy crusade to help get Muslims out of the Holy City, which was the start of the First Crusade. That city was called Jerusalem. This led to the call for a crusade. So armies were organized throughout Europe to battle the Muslims, and they were successful in reclaiming the Levant. After this, most Europeans returned home victorious, but some remained. The remaining crusaders established 4 states: the Principality of Antioch, the County of Edessa, the country of Tripoli, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem. 60 years after the creation of these states, Baldwin IV was born. When Baldwin was 9 years old, his father sent him to William of Tyre. He sent him to William of Tyre's school for education, owing to William's great knowledge and status as a cleric and historian within the realm. This knowledge was required for Baldwin IV to properly administer the culturally and politically complex realm of the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem. William, the Archbishop of Tyre, was an intelligent man who tutored Baldwin. Baldwin was educated on the art of war, history, and God. When he was with William, he began to lose feeling in his right arm. It was the beginning of Baldwin's lifelong condition and affliction. And at that stage, Baldwin got into the disease that took his life. If you're wondering what that disease was, then it's called leprosy. But he didn't stop just because of that disease. When King Amalric discovered Baldwin had leprosy, he tried to keep it a secret. Leprosy was widely stigmatized for most of history, since people didn't understand the precise causes. Some believed it was a sexually transmitted sickness, while others saw it as God's wrath. The majority felt it could be transferred just by being nearby. While this is partially accurate, leprosy patients were secluded from the rest of the population. And then days started turning into months and years, and finally the time came when Baldwin was not a kid anymore. He was now Baldwin IV, the Leper King. Baldwin overcame his difficulties and his judgment to become king. He actively participated in his kingdom's governance and military campaigns, garnering the respect and support of both his subjects and the nobles. His determination and skill to reign effectively despite his illness cemented his reputation as a capable and respected king. His father, King Amalric, perished from sickness during a military campaign against Egypt. He died in 1174 from what is thought to be a mix of dysentery and typhoid received during a military campaign in Egypt. These infections were frequent and often fatal in medieval times, especially in military situations with insufficient sanitation. His illness and death came shortly after his return from Egypt, bringing an end to his grandiose aspirations to increase his power in the region. King Amalric attempted to control Egypt when they failed to pay tribute, and he hoped to undermine the Muslim nations' growing might. He even received support from the Byzantines. However, he had failed to conquer Egypt, and the Muslim world saw a chance to retaliate against the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Baldwin was made king when he was 13 years old, and Raymond III was made his protector. In 1176, the moment Baldwin turned 18, he began to show that he had good leadership abilities. Baldwin exhibited outstanding strategic abilities, especially in combat circumstances. His ability to lead and create trust in his followers was vital. He maintained sensitive connections with various groups within his kingdom and with foreign countries. He knew that because of his situation, he wouldn't have any children to take over when he died. So he set up for his sister Sibylla to marry William of Montferrat, who came from a well-known Italian family. Sibylla lost her husband not long after they got married, but she got pregnant with his child and later had a boy. Now the time has come for Baldwin to repel the Muslims. During this time, Egypt's Sultan Saladin was busy uniting the Muslim world through conquest and diplomacy. He wished to unite all Muslim lands. So he declared himself the commander of a jihad, proclaiming a holy war to defend Islam and drive Christians out of the Holy Land. A year after Baldwin became king, Saladin launched an attack on the large city of Ascalon in 1177. While thought to be confined in the city, he attacked Saladin's army and defeated them at Montgizard. Despite acute leprosy, Baldwin IV collected a small force of perhaps 500 knights and a few thousand troops to face Saladin's bigger army. Faced with a numerical deficit and his own physical limitations, Baldwin cleverly surprised Saladin near Montgizard, exploiting Saladin's overextended supply lines, and secured a crucial victory against the odds. Despite being only 16 and in poor health, he boldly led his army from the front, inspiring many of the men who fought beside him, all while riding his horse and brandishing his sword in a single hand. In 1180, he was able to obtain a 2-year peace treaty with Saladin. Following a series of conflicts, including Saladin's crushing defeat at the Battle of Montgizard in 1177, Baldwin IV was able to arrange a 2-year peace pact with Saladin in 1180. The truce was a result of both sides realizing the mutual benefits of a short cessation of hostilities, which allowed them to consolidate their forces and handle domestic concerns. Saladin required time to strengthen his position in Egypt and Syria, whereas Baldwin desired to stabilize his health and the internal problems of his kingdom. This pragmatism resulted in the accord, providing a little respite from the ongoing fighting. Throughout the peace, Baldwin's health deteriorated. Knowing his death was approaching, he arranged for his sister Sibylla to marry one more person, Guy de Lusignan. The marriage was for political reasons. Baldwin needed to safeguard the Kingdom of Jerusalem's kingship as his leprosy worsened. Guy de Lusignan, a powerful lord from Pitois, married Sibylla in 1180 to strengthen the kingdom's military and political alliance. This marriage aimed to bolster Baldwin IV's political base and ensure leadership continuation. However, the choice was unpopular and caused major kingdom divides. What do you think? What happened next? Saladin seized Aleppo shortly after the 2-year peace agreement ended in 1183. The capture of Aleppo completed the encirclement of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. His aim of uniting Muslim territories in the Middle East was gradually becoming a reality. When Saladin invaded the Kingdom of Jerusalem again, Baldwin's illness severely weakened him. Baldwin IV's leprosy had impaired his physical and leadership abilities by the time Saladin invaded Jerusalem in 1183. His terrible condition prevented him from leading troops or managing extended military campaigns, which had helped him succeed. Baldwin's declining health made the kingdom less able to defend against Saladin's smart and well-coordinated attacks, making Jerusalem more vulnerable during this vital period. His leprosy was worsening day by day. He appointed Guy as his regent. Guy was his closest family member, and he wanted someone to take his reign after his death, so he could further lead the army and the War of Jerusalem. Baldwin appointed regents on occasion as his health deteriorated, but Guy proved to be an incompetent ruler who ignored Baldwin. In response to Guy and his own approaching death, Baldwin declared Sibylla's son Baldwin V king and named Raymond III as his regent. Raymond also served as Baldwin's regent after he got to the throne. Baldwin attempted to curb Guy's authority through the church. He had doubts about Guy de Lusignan's capacity for leadership and made efforts to restrict his authority in order to guarantee a competent government. He exercised control over Guy's authority by utilizing the influence of the church. And as it's said, death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it. The time had come for Baldwin IV to say goodbye to this world and his reign. Baldwin IV died in 1185 at the age of 24. His nephew Baldwin V became king when he was 8 years old. Raymond III, as regent, was able to obtain a 4-year peace treaty with Saladin, but Baldwin V died a year after becoming king. Sibylla became queen and divorced Guy in order to marry a more competent noble, but she later married him again. Thus, Guy, whom Baldwin IV tried to prevent from obtaining power in his later years, became king of Jerusalem. Thus, Saladin saw an opportunity to fully unite the Muslim world. He invaded the kingdom of Jerusalem again, but Baldwin was not there to stop him. Saladin was a capable commander in his own right, and Saladin defeated Guy and his army at the Battle of Hattin, and that was the downfall of the Christians in Jerusalem. The Christians in Jerusalem suffered greatly after Saladin beat Guy de Lusignan and his army at Hattin in 1187. It destroyed much of the Crusader army, weakening their military power, and Jerusalem was defenseless after the Christian knights were slaughtered and their authority shattered. Saladin besieged and captured Jerusalem a few months after the war, ending Christian rule and changing the regional power balance. This loss led to the Third Crusade, which aimed to retake Jerusalem and the Holy Land from Muslims. Guy was apprehended but released after handing over the city of Ascalon to Saladin, which Baldwin had brilliantly defended years previously. Saladin eventually took control of Jerusalem in 1187. At first, he intended to slaughter all of the Christians in the city in retaliation for the Crusaders' massacre of all Muslims when they captured the city in 1099. However, he changed his mind and allowed the Christians to seek safety in Acre. Baldwin IV's life shows how to be strong and smart in strategy, even when you're sick and can't do much. His rule, which featured significant victories and diplomatic initiatives, exemplified how willpower can defy the odds and alter the course of history. Baldwin's story is a powerful lesson that leadership goes beyond physical limitations and can help us all get through hard times.